Now I would like to introduce our first Fireside chat. And the focus is data governance, looking at reliable assets with better quality and increased trust. To steer the conversation, I'm about to welcome back Ravi from Data Tech Vibe to the stage, and his guest is Fawad Memon. He is the Director of Advanced Analytics and Insights for Coca-Cola Export Cooperation in Dubai. He's currently responsible for leading Coca-Cola's data analytics and digitization agenda for the Eurasia, Middle East operating unit, and he has also worked with heavyweights like P&G. Please give a very warm welcome back to Ravi and his guest, Fawad. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it working? Are the mics on? Are the mics on? Okay. Can I test my? Okay, it's working. So, Fawad, first of all, welcome to the panel, and it's really interesting what all you've achieved in terms of data governance. So, I want to start by asking, how hard is it to get a data governance program right? And why? What are the big challenges that you faced?
See, I think it is quite difficult to say how data governance actually works, in the sense that I will put it in this way, that it's either going to be complicated or very complicated. There is no other way of doing data governance, right? So the problem with data governance, as we see it right now, is that we are a global company, then there are companies which are local, then you have across the board different countries doing different sets of rules and regulations, right? So now I'll give you a very small example, right? So we are collecting data, which is personal data from consumers, right? Now, for us to store that data somewhere, each country has a different regulation. One example of a country with a very different regulation is that they require us to store the data in their country only, right? Now, so that's point number one. So, okay, fine. We will align with that. We will make sure that the data stays within your country. So now, when we were doing this, we looked at all the possible avenues and all the possible cloud services that we could use within that country to get that thing up and rolling. But when our internal team looked at the quality of the data cloud services that being offered in that country, we didn't like it, right? So now we are stuck between a governance which is required by the country, governance which is required by the company, right? But so now what do? It's not a simple decision. We have to place the data somewhere, but we can't do anything about it. Then at the same time, the only solution we could get was that you go back to the consumer and we ask them, are you okay for us to take your data and store it somewhere outside your country? Now, the problem over here is, as a normal consumer, if you get an email today by Google, are you okay with us moving your data from UAE to, let's say, Saudi? I'm just making it up. First and foremost, as a normal consumer, you don't even know where your data is stored. So you will be like, why are they asking me this question? And two, by default, you will say, like, something is wrong. Why are you moving my personal data from one place to the other? So you might actually turn down that. So now we have, so in this entire scenario of data governance, we are stuck. We have no solution. I don't want to offend our consumers. We can't go against a country's legislation, and we have our own rights. So this is a very simple example why it is so difficult that the data governance can be done very easily. And then you multiply by the 24 countries that I'm looking at. So that's a very separate way, right? Then to build on top of that, let's say you find a solution, the cloud services are up and running, you find a good solution, you put that data in, and it sits in country A. But I am a global company. My data science team sits in different countries. my media team sits in different countries. Now, if that person is accessing that data from a different country, am I breaking the law? I don't even know, right? Because yes, the country legislation says that the data needs to sit in our country, but if I'm running advanced analytics machine learning solutions, which my team is sitting, let's say, in Sofia, they are running it in their machines and their clouds. Am I going to break the protocol? So for those kind of things, you literally need to keep learning every day, and so there is no hard, fast rule on how you can do a good data governance.
All right, that's interesting. And the way you explain the challenges brings me to the next question. Do businesses struggle to balance data governance with agility? And what is the way out? How can both be balanced?
So, see, I love the term agility because everybody these days look at the term agile. We want to be agile. But when it comes to data governance and when it comes to agility or speed of doing work, I find it like I give myself an example, which is, let's say there are two tribes, and tribe number 1 and tribe number 2 hate each other. But for their survival, the chief have to get their son and daughters married, right? So now they hate each other, but for their survival, they have to do it. This is the exactly same thing that you would want to do when it comes to data governance, agility, and speed. And why am I saying that is because you would want to do it, but it's easier said than done. Right now, a lot of work is being done in what they say data governance 2.0. That is specifically talking about how do you bring agility into data governance. What they are saying is that because data governance takes a lot of time, what you're going to do is you're going to focus on your very high risk issues, and you're going to keep focusing on that while the rest of the work continues, right? So that is the agility, the 2.0 data governance. But for me, the problem of speed is from an analytics side, I would really want everything to be fast. Yeah, we want to do the analytics, we want to really make all these sexy presentations and show people we are doing machine learning and so on. But one thing that you literally cannot compromise on is data security. Now, if you're going to go after speed when it comes to data security, you're going to keep your PSC department or public affairs department up all night, right? Because one small leak and you know what happens, right?
True.
At the moment, it is global fact, 9 out of 10 consumers or customers will never work with you again if they find out that the security protocols that you guys are following is not the right one, right? So for me, that's the worry point. Where do I bring in agility? Where do I bring in speed? I can bring it on data analytics. I can bring it on my structures. I can bring it on my metadata, but I cannot bring it on my security. And this is where what I'm talking about. There is a love and hate relationship between governance and between agility. So for me, that's where the compromise happens. There's a number that is floating around is around $6 billion worth of investment coming into data governance 2.0 because of these issues. But like I said, it is, for me, I don't think anywhere nearby you would see that, speed will take over data governance part of it.
But that's a very interesting analogy that you talked about two tribes. I want to come to a very fundamental question. Going back to the idea of two tribes getting together for a common objective. So what should be the ideal common objective of data governance? What are we trying to achieve with effective data governance and agility? What's the ideal scenario?
See, I think the way you're going to, the future is as simple as when it comes to data governance, right? What you want to do is you're going to have to make your processes so automated that you keep on measuring your data security, you keep on measuring your data quality, you keep on measuring any other aspects of where the data is, where is data coming from. The only way possible, because of the amount of data coming in, is how do you automate your process that do these checks. A normal human being obviously cannot do it, but even when you're setting up these processes, what do you do? Like what are the algorithms that you want to run? But that for me is the only way. And now at least from our side, what we are doing is we are trying to keep as many checks as possible automated. So every night when the servers are low on the capacity, you start doing these refreshes, you start doing these checks so that next day when people are back in the office, at least some sort of checks have been done. But like I said, from a data security standpoint, that's a completely different ballgame. You will probably, for that, you'll have to spend obviously a lot of dollars behind it. You need experts in it, but that's the way I think you will take it forward.
Okay, at this stage, I want to invite the audience for any of the questions that they have on the points that we've discussed. Any questions? Anyone wants to make a comment? Yep. Can we have a mic there, please?
Thank you, Fawad. I can relate to you like point by point. I'm heading up data governance in MBC Group, so I actually all you said I can relate point to point. So I guess the point here is in most of the cases we act after the fact, right? Somehow, I mean, the systems and software and whatever has designed like years ago, and so now we want to make it compliant. We want to bring the data quality and all of that. So I guess the solution to this is what you call like the data, the privacy by design and all of this, right? So you bake it in from the very beginning of designing the process, designing the software, designing all of that. How do you do that in Coca-Cola? How is it perceived? Because obviously it needs to go through all of the organization, right? I mean that, let's say in this case, let's face it, on privacy is in the mind of everybody, and whatever they do, it should be considered. Because I guess in your case, you're quite heavy in personal data or in Coca-Cola.
So I think this is quite interesting. The reason why I say it's interesting is because we were always talking on PowerPoints and networking events on this has to be done, and IT would be doing it in silos, but the company then decided, right? It's like 2 years ago we said we really need to get serious about all of this. Yes, there is data privacy, data issues, everything will be there. But until and unless, as a company, you are dedicating people to do this work, you will not go anywhere. To be very honest, I was maybe 10% of my job 3 years ago was to look at this, try to understand and talk to people, relevant people, try to see how things are working around. And now 100% of my job is dedicated to it. Before I didn't have a team, now I have a team of people doing it. So all the way from Atlanta up till here, what we have done is we have actually created an organization within the organization, which is primarily focusing on data analytics and data science, which includes all of these issues of privacy, your network security. So as a company, we have taken that step. We have decided that that's the future, and with that comes the investments as well. So if you stand up, if the CEO is standing up in front of Wall Street and saying this is what we have decided, then we have gone in. So this is what has happened. And as I said, I'm not a data governance expert as such myself, only because we've been doing it now for 2 years properly and within my function. Before it was being managed centrally from Atlanta. But again, like I said, each country has such different dynamics. For me, managing 24 countries is becoming a headache. Think of it being managed at global level, right? So that's why, and then we have series of, series of lawyers sitting and working with our teams as well. So that's how the setup is now complete.
All right. With multiple locations and countries also come multiple versions of truth. So how are organizations challenged with this when it comes to data governance?
So multiple version of truth is a reality everywhere, right? So that's a given fact. For example, what we have done is we were recently looking at a certain data where we're getting data from 10 different sources. 4 different teams are looking at it, 4 different agencies are looking at it, and then endless end users, right? You're bound to have different people looking at different data, although they should be talking the same language, but because of the fact that so many people are involved in this entire journey, we were getting comments from the end user saying that, but I think data is X, but I saw a Y over there, what should I be doing, right? Over here, the decision, at least from our side, is very, very clear. One, move to a single version of truth, and what I mean by single version of truth is we have started creating data hubs. Then you start, it's a buzzword, but it's actually working, which is data as a product, right? So you bring in the entire data set under one team, which is my team, and then we become the single source of the data. We are responsible for the quality of the data. We are responsible for the data governance and everything. So, and then as we are creating these single source of truth portals for our team, then what is happening is that if you as a person wants XYZ data, you go to our hub and you download the data from there and you use the data. My team will help with analytics as well. My team will help and make sure that the data is correct. But what you have to keep in mind is that's the only way of doing it now. Otherwise, data is sitting in silos everywhere. When I say you need to create a data hub, it doesn't mean that you start bringing data and putting it in one place. It's just that we are there to connect the data, right? So you go in, and for you, portal A is the only place you would go and get the data. If you going somewhere else, there's a possibility you might not get the right data. And for us, we are building that marketing within our own company that, okay, you need to go here, this is where the right data is, and we take the responsibility.
So in effect, what you're alluding to is a central dashboard where people can just access the information. The data might be resting across different locations,
exactly,
but there is one portal or one dashboard that I can access.
Exactly, that's what
we
do.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. You also mentioned about data privacy and giving more control to consumers. So do you think data governance models would provide individuals more control over their data? Should it be doing that increasingly?
The question is not should it will happen, right? So you can look at Europe, right? So now consumers have access to two things. One, they can come back and say, there's a thing called right to be forgotten. They can come back and say, delete my data from your server.
Yep.
Then point number two, if they're giving you the data, give me access to my data. I want to see what you guys are doing with my data. So these two things are definitely happening. For me, what I see in all of this, the problem that eventually will happen is if consumers stop giving you that data, then all your machine learning tools, all your advanced analytics will just stop, right? So for me, this is bound to happen. At what is the end reaction by the consumers, we don't know. But personally, I think if you look at it, I sometimes think over it a lot, whether if tomorrow my consumers stop giving me this data, what do we do as a company? Like, do we go back to the traditional research method where I go and talk and take like 10 questions from you, or so it's a win-win, like a win-loss situation, a win-win situation. If the consumers give the data, we are in return giving them the best service. If they're not giving them the data, but that's their privacy is kept intact. So it's a to and fro, but there's no right answer to it right now.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes, and before I ask my final question, again, I open the floor for the audience. If you have any questions regarding what we've discussed. Okay, we have one. Go on.
Hi. You have the data products, and your data products are managed by your team, but the people who learn about the data quality issues and problems with the data are usually the businesses that are requesting, or the subject matter experts that are requesting the data. Do you have data stewards embedded within your businesses, or do you manage all of that for them?
So in our case, what is working as well is that some of my team members actually are coming from the business side who have joined the data analytics team. So we know the in and out. So I myself, coming from strategy and planning background, so I myself understand a lot of the data that is coming in. That is not the case for our other team members in the other regions, but you said the only way that we are learning is learning as we are going, right? So as you mentioned, like when we do all of this data quality checks, data issues, and then eventually data don't make sense, then my team again then goes back to investigate this with the broader team. And we are, as was mentioned at the start of during the discussion, was that we shouldn't be boiling the ocean, right? And that's what we are doing. So we are taking it one step at a time. We look at one product, we launch it, make sure it's working, then we go to the second product. And that's why we are saying that do not expect that the digitization will happen overnight. So we have been in the role for more than, like roughly around 2 years, and I think maybe we have done about 25-30% of the business. So it's going to keep on going like this. So, but what is working for me personally on my side is that some of my team members know the business a lot as well, so they're able to pick up some data during the process, and then obviously later on we find data quality issues as we are sitting with the business teams.
All right, so that brings me to my last question of the session. Tell us top practices for effective metadata management.
I think for me, see, the metadata is what simply is the W matrix, right? So which is pretty much saying what is the data for, where is the data coming from, and so on and so forth. For metadata, one thing that I feel that is missing and which needs to be brought in is the legality of everything. Yes, you can tag the data as much as you can, but what is that? What is the legal practice behind the data? That for me is very important. And the people in your team need to know the legalities as well. So gone are the days that, okay, I'm a data analytics professional, I shouldn't be. So one of my team members actually spends more time with our legal team than she spends time with us, right? So those kind of things are very important. So if you look at metadata, yes, you will have to spend a lot of time in the tagging of the data, but legality becomes one issue. And then like I said, you need to be really, really careful on the privacy and data quality part of it, right? So privacy means security and data quality because there's so much data coming in, and we have this habit of saying, okay, let the data come in, we might use it somewhere, but end of the day, remember that maybe you're going to use the 10-20% of the data, the rest is just sitting there wasting space, and that is also a cost on you as well. So for me, that's what we are focusing on, right? But point number one, legality and privacy, two.
Great. With that, I think we're in the last few seconds of the session. Thank you so much for this great insight. Thank you so much again, for the amazing questions that you've been asking.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.